many of you own a phone? Yeah? Well, I own a phone too. Yeah? And what would happen to your life if this little piece of plastic stops working completely, suddenly? Well, it happened to me last Thursday. And to be honest, this was my face a little bit. Right? My life just went into chaos. I arrived late to meetings. People were trying to get in touch with me and they couldn't. Overall, it was a mess. It's incredible how our lives are tied up to technology. But what about, our businesses? Think of one of those core systems around which you build your business, and imagine that it suddenly stops working completely for a day, maybe for 2 days. What would happen then? What if I told you that it's not about if it's going to fail, but when it's going to fail, and what you can do to prevent that or to mitigate that? My name is Jose. I'm managing director for Codurance Spain, and there's more relationship between what happened to me and my phone and what your systems are going to go through. And today I would like to talk to you about what at least two main things that you can do in order to avoid that, and where you can spot some of the signs that it's going to happen so that you can prevent it. So this here is a Pixel 3. It's a phone from 2018, yeah, so 4 years ago. In my book, this is not an old phone, yeah, but by technology standards, it's ancient, correct? Now, how old are your systems? I don't know about you. We work with people in the US, we work in UK, Asia. Plenty of organizations have systems that are older than 4 years, correct? Now, there are three main areas where we see that things start unraveling a little bit. Yeah, let's go through them. Because you see, just as my phone will fail, your system also goes through this same process. Yeah? Are you familiar with this graph? We call it the bathtub curve. It shows the number of defects that your system, your machine, whatever it is that you're doing, will go through its lifetime. And at the beginning, you can sort of prevent that. You establish quality gates, you do soft launches, you do all of these things to kind of cut that first number of defects that you're going to get. But after it's out, it's going to fail. And it's going to fail particularly at the end, when it's reaching the end of its life. So what are those three areas? Well, first, scalability. If you're a retailer, for instance, and you think about Black Friday, not as a money-making day, but as a panic-inducing day, then you probably have this problem, right? If your system is not reliable enough, so when the volume increases, it can behave the same. If it doesn't scale with that volume, if you're not able to predict that it's going to fail to do things about it, then you have a scalability issue, yeah? And it's very common to see this. Now, another area where we find this is cost reduction. Yeah? Those two things, both scalability and cost, are very well connected, because to prevent things like Black Friday, etc., what companies tend to do is they tend to over-dimension their systems to be able to deal with a couple of days during the year. Yeah, you don't want that, especially if you're in a business where cost is kind of staying competitive. Is the key to staying competitive. For instance, booking, right? And we have some people here that are very familiar with that topic. So, in an industry where the number of searches every year kind of doubles, yeah, to get one booking. Yeah? Staying at the lowest cost possible is key, because you're getting the same money, but you're getting more traffic. You're getting more searches that you need to deal with. So things like using lambdas or spot instances or this kind of technological advances to your platform are a must if you really want to stay in business. Now, the last point that we see very often is security. Now, if you've been up with the news, you've probably heard of ransomware. Yeah. So attacks, like Colonial Pipeline, maybe you've heard of Acer, the NBA, lots of famous companies have been victims of this kind of thing, right? It's a type of attack where the attackers encrypt your data. They make it unavailable. Basically, unless you pay them, you won't be able to do anything. Can you afford that? Probably not. And these problems that I'm talking about, they have deep roots. They're not easy problems to solve. There's no silver bullet that you just apply and you buy the software and it gets done. No, they really take a lot of effort. And as anyone that has worked with legacy will tell you, it's a bit like an onion. And you start peeling the layers and you start crying because it's hard. It's hard to solve. But there are some things that you can do about that. They are totally free. In fact, you could start implementing these things today if you want it. And I'm going to talk about two in particular that we use very often. The first one would be what we call continuous improvement programs. And to some extent, that's a mindset journey that your organization has to go through. The second one would be using the well-architected framework, in this case, AWS Well-Architected Framework, in order to assess where you are, paint a picture or a vision of where you want to go, and even track how you're progressing towards it. So let's start with the first. Well, it starts with understanding that modernization is not a destination. It's a journey, something that it will always continue to happen, right? And this is why things like lift and shift and things like this, they don't really work, because they declare victory, when in reality your system will continue to exist. You just extended its lifetime and will fail again. So how do you do that? Well, you need to create a system within your organization that is self-sustainable and that allows you to find those improvements that you need to do and apply them at a cost-effective rate. And something that needs to happen all the time. So here's an example of how we set this up for some of our clients. So you have different functional areas where you have improvements that need to be made. You funnel those, so you refine them, you discover them, and once they're ready, you can put them in a backlog and start working on them. And you can make sure that the teams that are working on them are supported throughout the organization in order to make sure that the success of these initiatives is what you expect. Now, those initiatives need to come from somewhere. Where is that? Well, this is where the well-architected framework comes in and is very handy, right? The well-architected framework is a set of guidelines prepared for you to be able to build these applications with this, future-proofness, so to speak. And it touches on 6 main areas that any organizational system goes through or has to account for. And it gives you tools to deal with the unbalance between those different pillars that you're working with. Now, the interesting thing here is that it not only allows you to understand where you are and maybe paint a picture of where you would like to be, what is possible within the cloud, let's say, but it's a very good way to track how you're progressing towards those goals or those improvements as well. Overall, just like my phone, your systems are going to fail at some point. You better do something about it today. You can start anytime. These are all free tools that you can use. And if, what better place or what better time to start than today.